Hello everybody, so in this video I am going to be talking about will Brighter Shores replace RuneScape? So there is talk about this on Reddit, on the discussions on Steam, on comment sections below, talking about will Andrew Gower replace his own original creation, which is RuneScape. So imagine that if he creates his own game, it then becomes incredibly popular and basically most players migrate over to Brighter Shores, and then it becomes the new RuneScape in a sense. And he is the old, the creator of RuneScape itself. So that's just like an incredible scenario that has the potential to happen. But I think that the likely scenario is both games are going to succeed, and we'll go into that. But the thing is, some of the four arguments for Brighter Shores, we'll go through those. Some of the aspects that people seem to like about the game so far, from looking at the trailer, looking at the tweets. So, first of all, if anybody is going to replace RuneScape, it would be the creator of RuneScape themselves, Andrew Gower, because this individual clearly knows how to make a game. He clearly knows how to make an experience which users are engaged in. He knows how to make a world surrounding an MMORPG, and he's been successful before doing it. So why couldn't he potentially be successful again? So if anybody on this earth is ever going to create a game that replaces RuneScape or even just rivals RuneScape in terms of player count, because both games could still succeed, right, in their own right. There's enough gamers in the world. If anybody's going to do that, it is probably Andrew Gower. Now, what we can also see is with this new world that's going to be built in Brighter Shores with the new maps, what the initial success will be is going to be massive. So the first couple of months are probably going to be incredibly hyped for the game. There's going to be massive player counts, most likely. People just wanting to try out the game to see what it's like. So there is going to be that initial success of the game, no doubt. So that feeling of exploring another world, leveling new professions and competing. This is an important point. Competing for high scores. So Andrew Gower has already talked about that there's going to be multiple professions within the game. So that means that there is probably going to be some kind of high scores, maybe, on the game, so you can compete on the different professions. So it said there's going to be a variety of professions. We don't know whether that's going to be more professions than there is skills in RuneScape itself, or how they're going to release them. Probably in episodes, like I talked about in my last video. I talked about how there's 4 episodes that Andrew Gower is releasing with this game. So there's content every, let's say, 3 to 6 months, a big batch of content, and then probably you'd have weekly updates, I assume, like he did with the original game that he once created. So if there's going to be competing high scores, everybody's going to be picking a skill. Yourself, you'll be picking a skill and possibly trying to level up that skill and get, becoming like a master at it and becoming like on top of the high scores. There'll be people out there that are looking to do that. There'll be others that just want to try every skill and every piece of content that's there and just have fun and not really compete for high scores. But you're going to have players that play the game for different reasons. One, because they're interested in what Andrew Gower has created. One, because it's a new MMORPG, just for the sake of it, people try out for that. One, because they want to level skills and train the skills up. Another, because they want to see the quest. There is going to be multiple reasons why one would try Brighter Shores, and that collectively is going to create a game where the player count is probably going to be booming towards the beginning of Brighter Shores. Now, I think that will happen initially, but then the player count will drop off a little bit, maybe. And then what Andrew Gower is doing is releasing chunks of content in episodes. So he's got 3 episodes done, 1 that he's working on now. So every time he releases a chunk of episode of a content and new quests and new areas, then hopefully that brings the player base back that previously played to see if they have intrigue in that one. and then bring new players in, and hopefully that will mean that it has a stable player count as well. So Andrew has also talked about having a wide variety of professions, like I said. And the game, remember, the game that Andrew Gower has been working on has been in development for 10 years as well. So this isn't something that he's just been working on for 6 months. He's been thinking about this for 10 years and how he wants the new player experience to be, and the mid-game and the end-game eventually, of course. So it's also going to have its own unique monsters and different skills. So I don't think it's going to do the skills exactly like RuneScape does them. We already know that there is going to be potentially duo skilling in the game. So the ability to duo fish, like two people holding a fishing net and having to get a friend to help you catch fish. Same thing with woodcutting, the able to duo on a tree to get the woodcutting resource, etc. So we already know that there's going to be a social element to the game as well. So that kind of sets itself apart in the sense that you can do activities in a social way together, but with fishing, there's two people together, like holding a fishing net, two people together holding their own kind of saw to chop a tree. So we'll see how that goes. It's also grid-based and not tick-based, so there's none of the delay of ticks that you see with RuneScape at the moment. The other thing is, let's go on the against argument, right? Let's look at this from perspectives. So I think that in an ideal world, both games succeed. I play Old School Runescape, okay, and I love the game. I think it's fantastic. So I hope, ideally, Brighter Shores actually does really well, and Old School Runescape does really well. But some of the against arguments as to why it might not succeed is that many have tried to be an alternative to RuneScape, but not actually achieved the full success of that. Okay, so if you remember, there was a game called Genfanad, which was like an alternative to RuneScape Classic, I would say, with its own unique, funny and sarcastic storylines. It was an MMORPG. I think it peaked at around like 900 to 1,000 players or something like that. It was built by a small development team of just a handful of people, and I don't know how long the game was worked on for. I think it was like a number of years, 3 years or something like that, 4 years. But the game did succeed temporarily, but eventually it fallen off a little bit. But hopefully it succeeds in the future and they get more players back. But they tried to emulate RuneScape Classic in a way, but it had its own unique systems, but that didn't succeed. Again, there was another game called Remote Realms, which is also still available, but they tried to emulate Old School RuneScape and basically use all the skills that were in Old School RuneScape and have their own game, but have those skills, and they added sailing to that as well. But that game didn't succeed because, or it's didn't garner a massive player base, shall we say. It's got its own really tight-knit community that's a dedicated fan base, but it didn't really succeed on the mainstream scale, shall we say. So that game didn't, because it wasn't differentiated enough from the original RuneScape. It tried to copy too much of what RuneScape is. So this is the problem, is if Andrew Gower tries to implement too many systems that are like RuneScape, you want it to have its unique identity and feel in the game. So different types of professions that are not actually in RuneScape, the ability to train in different ways, and a variety of quest storylines that are different from RuneScape, the different kind of aesthetic from RuneScape. And we can see that a little bit in certain professions that can be trained. Like, for example, in one of the pictures, it shows like 4 different devices, and it seems like they might be able to use them in like an interactive way with other players as well. So we'll see how that works out. But it needs to do something that's different from RuneScape and to stand out and have its own unique selling point. And hopefully Andrew Gower will start to talk more about what their unique selling point is going to be for the game, what sets them apart from RuneScape. One of the aspects that they have talked about is that it's going to be a less grindy game. So it's not going to necessarily be all about the grind of getting to the max level of a skill, although you may do that. It's going to be more about the story, the variety, the different ways you can train skills, and more about that aspect rather than just trying to rush to the end game. Because I think that's why Andrew Gower is releasing it in 4 episodes, is so that you eventually progress in the game. Now, also another point is that Old School Runescape does have a lot of staying power. It really does, because a lot of players have become attached to their accounts. People have built up over many years collection logs. They've built up skills and XP in the hundreds of millions, and they've got 99 in skills, etc. So they are already attached to this game, Old School RuneScape. So their majority of their time is going to go into that game. So I don't think RuneScape, Old School RuneScape, is going to be replaced by Brighter Shores. Rather, what I would say is that I think Brighter Shores will just become an alternative or a game that you can play alongside RuneScape, because this game is going to have AFK ability. You're going to be able to do tasks that are AFK, and it can be partly a second monitor screen game in essence, much like RuneScape in that sense. So you could effectively play both games at the same time. You could go on Old School RuneScape and go do some woodcutting or fishing, and then at the same time still play Brighter Shores. So I think that both games can succeed together, and we can both play the same game at the same time, or switch between them both. So I don't think it has to be this tribalistic attitude of, oh, this is a game that's going to kill RuneScape, or this kind of tribal attitude of us versus them, like Brighter Shores versus RuneScape. I think what is going to happen is that both games will succeed in their own right, and that's the way that I see that the gaming landscape going for this game. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button